Hello, all. I suspect we're still gathering. This is Candy Marshall with TheDream.Us. We are very happy to have you join us. And just a moment now that we're live, Sadana is going to be able to tell me how many of you we have. We'll wait just a few minutes as people are coming on. And then Sadana will just do a little bit, give us some guidance on how you can ask questions. And she'll help fill those questions. So Sadana, what are we seeing in terms of numbers of people who are joining us right now?
Sure, we're seeing 3 people logged on right now.
All right, great. So I'm going to wait just a little bit.
Yes.
And the clock here, we're fine. Yeah. And if anyone, for those who are on, those few of you, if you want to send us just a little comment in your chat box to say, yes, we can hear you and yes, we can see the screen, that would be great. We'll know everything's working. Anything coming in, Sadana?
Yes, we have people saying that they can hear us. We now have 4 attendees logged on.
Good. All right, I'm just going to wait just a little bit more. Thank you for all of those of you who joined on time. I know it's frustrating to wait just a couple of minutes, but it will be great to get as many as we can.
Okay, so someone has commented that they have a small group at the Big Shoulders Fund office. So I think they're all in one login.
That's great. Well, then maybe I think I'll just launch and jump in. Let me just start by saying we are so appreciative of Big Shoulders Fund and their partnership and putting this together so that we could reach out to the high schools of the Big Shoulders Fund grouping. And then second, are very grateful to all of you. I know, or I believe that many of you have been working with Dreamers. I am going to go through just a little background on Dreamers today because I don't know if all of you are familiar. So those of you who are, just bear with me. And if you have any comments you want to add, certainly you can do that in the chat box. And then we'll just talk about what we're doing in Chicago. It's a unique year for us in Chicago because in the past, and you may or may not be familiar with this, the Pritzkers had done a scholarship called the Pritzker Access Scholarship through the Noble Charter Schools. And this year they decided to give those funds to us and manage that scholarship through our program. And importantly, they wanted to open it up to students beyond the Noble Charter high schools. So it becomes really important that we start to do our outreach and make sure we're reaching as many high school students as we can. And that is where you all come in. So let me jump in. I'll just tell you a little bit about our program and start to move through this quickly. If you have questions, well, Sadana, this would be a great time for you to tell people how to submit questions.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Sadana Singh. I'm Communications Manager with TheDream.Us. I'll be monitoring the chat box. So as you all know, you can type your questions directly in that chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on it and I'll be able to ask Candy during the broadcast for you. You can also type your question in the Q&A box. It's another little button that says Q&A right on your dashboard. And the third option is you can raise your hand to ask a question out loud during the broadcast. So those are 3 ways you can interact with us, and just know that anytime during the presentation, you can type in a comment or a question. Thank you.
Okay, that's fabulous. Good. And then we're also joined by Melissa Barrera, who actually worked with us in the past and has come back to work with us on a temporary basis for our scholarship promotion. So Mel, welcome back. So let's just talk about the Dream.Us. We are the nation's largest college access and success program for dreamers. And the moment I say that, I feel compelled to share with you, it's not hard to be the nation's largest because there are not that many people giving scholarships to dreamers. I would love to be displaced in this particular role. To date, we've given over 5,000 scholarships in 16 states and Washington, D.C. We have 70 plus partner colleges. And our goal with the funds that we now have is to award at least 7,000 scholarships and have a goal of ending up with 5,000 graduates. And the way that we sit right now, we have sufficient funding for 3 more years, including this year, and then 2 years after that. But I will share with you that unlike many nonprofits, our goal is to go out of business. And we think about ourselves as the Pell Grant for Dreamers. And what that means is we really are taking the place of the Pell Grant that they cannot get. And as soon as Congress acts and does what it should be doing, and Dreamers can get access to that Pell Grant, the need for us as a scholarship program will go away. So we look out into the future with great hope, I will say. Meet the Dreamers. They are young, undocumented immigrants who came to the country at very young ages. They have grown up in this country. Chicago has a beautifully diverse population of Dreamers because you're not just necessarily getting people from Latino countries, but you have people, particularly from Northern European countries and just the Northern Hemisphere. It's just rich in its population. Across the country, this is a number that shocks us every time I see it. 98,000 students are graduating from high school each year across this country, and these people are all Dreamers. They are leaders in our schools and our communities, no doubt leaders in your schools. This country is their home. And what often happens is they discover many of them don't even know of their undocumented status until one of two things happens. One, they get ready to go get a driver's license and their parents tell them you can't because you don't have a social security number. Or two, and this one's quite common, they go to see you, their high school counselor. And it comes, the high school counselor says, oh, you need to fill out the FAFSA. You need a social security number. They go on to get it, only to discover they have no social security number and can't complete the FAFSA. So it's a difficult journey and often shocking to students at this age. And what we hear our scholars say is they just felt a moment when all their dreams were just crushed. And that is the reason we realized we need to be in existence, is someone needs to help these students until Congress acts and they can get a Pell Grant. Someone has to help them realize their dream of a college education. So undocumented students living particularly right now in fear of deportation for their families and for themselves. Many of our students have had DACA, which protects them, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But Trump's tried to rescind DACA, and even if he had not rescinded DACA, we have high school students that are graduating today that wouldn't qualify for DACA because they weren't able to come to the country before 2007. So we've adjusted that with our program. I'm going to talk about it. 73% of our scholars work in 1 to 3 jobs. They're not only helping pay for college, they're helping support their families. And you can see of those 73%, 29% are supporting their families. I've mentioned no federal aid. I am so happy to say that this year they now have access to state aid in Illinois. And it's just new. Students are applying now. Please, please work with your students in completing their applications. It's really essential for our scholarship, and I'll talk with you about why that is. No affordable health care, no licensed careers in most states, although that's improving, I will say. And without DACA, they're not able to legally work, but we always add, all is not lost. They can work as independent contractors. Dreamers can set up their own businesses. And more recently, there's an introduction of something called work cooperatives that Dreamers without DACA can join and then get placements through the cooperative. So we're really working on trying to ensure that even if Dreamers don't have DACA or TPS, they still have a way to have a meaningful career and support their families. So I've mentioned DACA. It was a door that opened in 2012. Obama put it in place. It literally changed people's lives. They had lawful presence, couldn't be deported. They could work. They have renewable work permits, so they can work for 2 years and then need to renew. But unfortunately, Trump's trying to end the program. As I mentioned, no students graduating from, or most students graduating from high school now aren't able to apply for DACA if they didn't already have it. I should say, no one can apply for DACA if they didn't already have it. And right now, the future of DACA sits in the hands of the courts, the Supreme Court in particular, and we expect a decision sometime between now and the end of June. So a very uncertain time. So then now I'm going to jump into our program. And when we establish a program, we put in place a particular model, and that model has proven to be very important in Chicago. And this is a president of El Paso, or a past president of UTEP. And I was speaking with her at a conference, and she said this: a promise of access without excellence is a broken promise. So we realized, okay, our students, the money is essential to even get into college, but may not be sufficient to ensure graduation. So we looked at a number of different models and said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have select partner colleges, and here they are for Illinois. And we selected them based on colleges that have a track record of serving and graduating low-income first-generation students. Our students are 100% low income, 80% first generation, and colleges that would devote or dedicate a scholar advisor to work with our cohort of students on the campus, and presidents who are committed to identifying and addressing the barriers undocumented students face in successfully completing college. And I'll tell you, the barriers that we see are not as often around the academics as they are life circumstances. A parent is detained and can't work. A parent is deported. The student now has to care for younger family members. Our students are often the only person in the family that has a driver's license. So if they're in an accident, this fear of losing the driver's license and not being able to help drive family members to work, they just live with so much weight on their shoulders. And I often say, there really is no 18-year-old that should have to carry these kinds of burdens. And yet our students do. And what is amazing is how resilient and motivated they are. And I can say we have an example of such student right here in the session, because Sadhana herself was undocumented, received DACA, was able to get her scholarship, graduated with degree in communications, did a number of internships, and then came back and joined us to manage our communications. So she herself is an amazing success story of how the model can work. Working with our partner colleges, we have 3 goals: provide affordable access, address the barriers and challenges, and we try to achieve a 75% graduation rate, and that's over 6 years. And we're on the path to doing that. It's astounding. It's way above the national average. Today, we've got a 93% persistence rate, 88% overall. And I told you our scholars are really succeeding in college. They have an average 3.2 GPA. So they're just rocking it. Let me talk then a little bit about our scholar community. This number needs to be updated, Sadhana. We now have a community of over, it says 3,500, but it's even more than that. Dreamers that are in a Facebook community. And it's a beautiful model where across the country, they're providing each other peer-to-peer support. And it's been magical watching how important that has been. And I think one of the reasons it's so important is one of our scholars said to me, no one knows what it's like to be undocumented unless you are undocumented. And she said this in reference to 2 younger siblings, both of whom are US citizens because they were born here in the US. And she said, even my brother and sister don't understand what it is like to walk in my shoes. So this peer group has been really important. Okay, now I'm going to get to what I think you really are most interested in, which is our national scholarship. For today, I'm really focusing on the high school graduate scholarship because you are high school counselors and this is most important. But I did want to say to you, we also have a scholarship for community college graduates. And I don't know if you track the success of your students who have graduated, but to the extent that you have students who graduated and went on to community colleges and you think they might be interested in applying, then we certainly can get you information and you could reach out to them. But for today, let's keep the focus on the high school graduates. The scholarship is a total of $29,000 for tuition fees, but we also give a stipend of $1,000 per year, so $4,000 total for a bachelor. So it's really $33,000 in total for tuition and fees. I really want to emphasize that this year, because the DACA criteria are so old, and in the past, we would let people without DACA apply so long as they met the DACA criteria. Now we've said you can apply so long as you came to the United States before November 1, 2014. So that's 5 years ago. And you otherwise meet the DACA criteria. And so that's having graduated from a US high school, you don't have a criminal background, you came before you're 16. But really important for me to emphasize, students do not have to have DACA or TPS to apply. They need only to have arrived more than 5 years ago. Okay, I might stop right here with this discussion on eligibility. Wait a minute, I'm gonna do one more slide on eligibility, and then I'm gonna stop and get some questions. Okay, here's a slide on eligibility so you can see the full set of eligibility beyond immigration. Our high school students have to have a GPA of 2.5 or greater. Test scores are optional, but if they've taken the tests, we want them to report them. They cannot have already attended a four-year college, which won't be a problem for your students. They cannot have graduated from high school and earned more than 21 credits. Again, I don't think that's going to be an issue for your students. Residency, they have to be eligible for in-state tuition at our partner colleges. I mentioned the came before November 1, 2014, and we give them 1 year to enroll. So they receive our award in April, and they could enroll in the fall, or in some cases, scholars need a little more time to get their house in order, particularly from a financial perspective, so then they start the next spring. But they do have to start in that next academic year. Now I'm going to stop and just pause. I'll leave this slide up. And Sadhana, maybe you can tell us what we're seeing in terms of questions.
For now, we have no questions yet.
Okay, let me just pause and let people say, are there, based particularly on this eligibility, questions you have and things that might pertain to your schools? For those of you in a group, somebody could just chat, type in your questions for you. Nothing coming in?
Don't see anything coming yet.
Okay, I see that I'm just like such a fabulous explainer. You have no questions. That, or I'm so beyond you now, you're just like, we wouldn't even know what to ask. Okay, so let's talk about our application timeline. It opened in November 1. It closes February 27. So that is mere not very many days away. It's let's see, it's less than 30 days away. And then in late April, we notify the recipients. We do our best to move that up, but the commitment we make is late April. So then let me just show you an application overview. And Sheila, it occurs to me, I'm assuming you're on, I might have forgotten to send you a preview link, and I can send it to you. We have a preview link for the application that you can use so you actually can walk through it and see what it looks like. Do not share that preview link with scholars because it will not work to apply. So it truly is only a preview link. But this will give you just a sense of what's on the application. We've tried to keep it as simple as possible. So we get the general applicant information, including the immigration eligibility, most important, did you come more than 5 years ago? We get academic information. So they actually select one of our Illinois partner colleges. And let me go back up here because I kind of went over this quickly. Where are our colleges? Sorry, I'm jumping around here for you. So right now we have these 7 partner colleges. Illinois College just joined us. So Arupe, of course, is 2-year college. Dominican, private. Illinois just joined us. Lewis just joined us last year. National Lewis has been a fabulous partner. Northeastern and UIC. And these partner colleges are unique in that some of them can only take a limited number of students with our scholarship because they have to close the gap. Others, like National Lewis, will take as many students as we can give them. So I'm just going to put a peg there because I want to come back and talk with you about how an applicant might think about which partner college they choose. So in our application, and going back to this slide, the students select their partner college and they can only select one. And we really do want them to select the one that they think they most want to go to and that they are eligible to attend. It makes no sense for them to choose a college where, if as you're counseling them, the likelihood of them getting in based on their academics is so low that it makes no sense to apply. Now, that said, what will happen is this. As students apply, and let me use Northeastern as example. Northeastern is only able to take 5 high school graduates. So Northeastern isn't a good example. I'm going to take that back because they are not a select college. Almost all the students who get our scholarship can get into Northeastern. So let me use one that's more selective. So let's use Illinois College. It's new. They'll only be able to take at most 10 scholars. And so what we will do with them is once we get our applicants who have selected Illinois College, they'll look at that and say, okay, who's admissible? And if it's admissible, then they'll remain eligible. If they're not, then they won't be able to get our scholarship to go to Illinois College. Now, not all is lost because if it's a high scoring student, we will still be able to offer them at least the opportunity to attend National Louis. So there's a little bit of strategy that goes into play in thinking about that partner college. And I'm happy to answer questions on that in just a moment here. Financial information, they identify their status, dependent, independent. We have them put their financial information directly into the application. They do not have to upload any documents. We don't want the financial documents in our system. We try to get as little information as we can. The same, by the way, up on the applicant information, even if they have DACA and TPS, while we will ask for the number, the EAD number, we don't have them upload any documentation on that. We collect responsibilities. That's quite normal, volunteer community service. We've added home responsibilities because so many of our scholars have home responsibilities that prevent them from doing volunteer and community service work. And then we have 2 essays, 750 each. One is on educational and career goals. The other is on overcoming adversity. And educational career goals, we want to know what informed them, what the student thinks might get in their way, and how they think they will address those barriers. With overcoming adversity, we want to know a challenging circumstance beyond paying for college, that one doesn't count, that they've had to face, what they did to overcome it, what they learned, and how they would share that learning with others. So that's the application. Supporting documents, only the high school transcript. It can be unofficial, doesn't have to be official. SAT scores if they've taken them. And if they've gone to community college, and I think most of your students won't, we would have them upload their community college transcript. So now the selection timeline, and I'll reiterate a bit of what I said about the college selection. So in March, ISTS, and they are our scholarship management provider, they manage our application. They'll review and score the academics for all of our eligible applications. Then what we do here is quite unique to Illinois. Once we have the eligible and complete list of applicants, for each of the colleges, we'll send them a list and it will say, here are the students that selected your college as their first choice. They have a very short turnaround time to get back to us to say, here are the students who are admissible and eligible for state aid. Now, in some schools, the eligibility for state aid isn't, even if a student wasn't eligible, it's no worry. National Louis, again, being an example. But a few of our partner colleges, the gap between our award and the cost of tuition and fees is so large that what they need is our award, a student getting some state aid, and then they close the gap to pay for all of tuition and fees. So that's what we're going to be looking for from the colleges. They send those lists back to us. And then, as I mentioned, we then will award the scholarship to the highest scoring finalists, those who are admissible and eligible for state aid at each of the partner colleges. So a little bit of a complex process, at least for us. I hope I'm describing it in a way that makes sense. I'm going to pause and see if questions are coming up.
Yes, Candy, we do have 2 questions come in.
Okay.
So the first question is indeed on in-state tuition. D. Bennett asks, are there any special requirements regarding the eligibility for in-state tuition?
Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't grab a slide on that. And I'm not going to be able to speak myself off the top of my head. I don't trust my knowledge that well on the eligibility for in-state tuition. But what we will do is, Sheila, you may already have this, but if not, we will pull that and I'll send it to Sheila and she can send it back out to you.
All right, and then another question from D. Bennett. Are all students who do not get into the school they select then directed to National Louis, or can they select a different school?
No, they won't be able to select a different school, and not all of them will be directed because we have a limited number of awards we're going to be able to give. So it's only the highest scoring that we would send off to National Louis. And then there's an overall cap for the number of awards that we'll be able to give. And that cap actually isn't set yet. We look at that every year to see how robust the applicant pool is. And just by way of example, last year, our budget was to award 800 scholarships nationwide. And we had such an incredibly robust pool. We pulled funds forward from a future scholarship round, and we gave enough awards. We ended up with, it's about 900, it's just a little over 900 students attending nationwide. Our goal in Chicago is to get at least 10 students in each partner college. And right now, at least, we will want to go higher than that. And right now, that number would be 70 because we have 7 partner colleges. But in addition to that, because the Pritzkers gave us their funds, they want to give 60 scholarships. So you add those two numbers together, and our goal is to try to do 130 scholarships to Illinois students, really Chicago area students this year. So it's a high number. So this is a good year for students to be applying, is what I can say. And, I'll also share, interestingly enough, we are at about 80% nationally, 80% of last year's applicant numbers. And we've really stepped up our promotion. That's why Melissa's joined our team, to see if it's a promotion issue. But it's odd to us because we actually opened the eligibility criteria. So people who came in before 2014 can come. You no longer have to have come before 2007. So one would have thought that we had a larger applicant pool and that they would then, we'd have because there's more applicants to be eligible, more would apply. And that's not been the case. One of the things that I am worrying about is that we're seeing a chilling effect, and that dreamers are so uncertain about their future and whether they're going to be able to work if DACA goes away. They're worried about that, that they may be saying, I'm just going to hold off on college for right now. So I'm going to pause right there because I would love to put that question to you and get some feedback. What are you seeing as you're talking with dreamers in your high schools? Are they holding back on the college idea, or do they seem to be pressing forward? Feedback? Give a moment for people to put in some comments.
And remember, if you want to speak out loud, you can certainly raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
And maybe somebody in the group session, whoever might be leading, Sheila, you might be there. If you could just unmute and just maybe speak for the group in the room on what you might be seeing in the high schools.
We have a comment from D. Bennett that says he's unsure right now, or she's unsure right now.
And someone's raised their hand. It looks like Sheila.
Yep.
Hi, it's Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
I think the high school counselors would have a better sense of that. We don't have as strong a sense of really what what's happening. Yeah, the specifics of each student, but I would definitely agree with you in your assessment that I think a lot of students are just really worried to do much of anything moving forward. And yeah, I mean, and worried about maybe their parents, just everything, you know, they just don't know what their situation is going to be looking like. But again, that's just based on, you know, in the past couple of years experience that I've had, but that would be my sense.
Okay, good. That's helpful. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna, unless there are other questions, Sedana, I will move forward.
There are no other questions right now.
All right. So how you can help. And it's very simple. Get the word out. So we have a Big Shoulders Fund flyer that we prepared. And I think Sheila will have sent that out to people. And certainly, if I think you've got that, Sheila, so I'm going to assume that's gone out. So just by the way, printing that flyer out and putting it up in your cubicle, or if you have an office, in your office, sends the message to dreamers who might not otherwise even want to talk about their status, that you are open and willing to help them. So the flyers have importance beyond just letting people know about a scholarship. It really sends a message about the fact that you care. I don't know if your high schools have something on your website or in another place, either for your students, or if there's another way you can reach them to say, hey, want to let you know we're here and ready to do counseling for dreamers. Social media, if you communicate with your scholars with social media, is a great way to get the word out to them. Obviously, attending fairs or workshops. I'm not quite sure with you how it works, whether you have something like that that might be appropriate for this. And then just straight on applicant outreach, letting students that, and I've mentioned this, letting students know you're a Dreamer Ally, and you can even host sessions in your high school for dreamers. If you're a dreamer and you're interested in knowing about scholarships, come in and I'll meet with you as a group. Again, that idea that there's sort of power in numbers. And then helping our students apply. And Sheila has already passed on to me 2 applicants that we know have applied from Big Shoulder schools. So sitting down with them, helping them go through the application. You can actually do an application session where you have them come in again as a group. Melissa and I are going to be doing one of those in Arizona for high school students. Assisting in writing their applicants, their essays. That's an important part of the score, and it's really important that the students focus on it. So oftentimes what is good is if they can write one, you can give some edits, they do another draft, you maybe do some more edits. That's very helpful. Helping them get and upload complete transcripts. And then of course, always reminding applicants of deadlines. And it is so true that we see most of our students actually submit their applications in the last 3 days before the application closes, which is such a nail biter. And I laugh about this because I have a daughter who's now graduated from college, but when she was applying for colleges, she was working, an application was due at midnight. And she's working, and she submitted it at 11:45. And I said to her, wow, that was just in time. And she said to me, what do you mean? I had 15 more minutes. So message being, we really need to work with these students to say, you know, it's a good idea to submit it a little more than 15 minutes because something might go wrong. So anything you can do to help is good there. Again, I'll stop. This is the end of the deck, and see if there are other questions that we need to answer.
Nope, no other questions come in yet, but Sheila did confirm that the flyer has gone out to the counselors.
Fabulous. Thank you, Sheila. All right, so I think I have, it looks like Sheila might have a comment.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Oop, you were unmuted and then muted. Try one more time, Sheila.
I am on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, you know, thank you so much for all of this, Candy, and everybody. And you discussed the eligibility requirements. Can you talk a little bit about what you look for that when the applications are coming in? What are you looking for, you know, in the applicants? I mean, do you want to see a lot of extra activities or, you know, service? Obviously, you you, I'm sure, read their two essays very closely and make a determination from those. But maybe could you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So the academics. So we definitely consider the high school GPA. That is important. But I would say in some ways it's less important than in most programs. So maybe I can share this. We're not trying to get that top 10% of your high school class. And our theory has always been those high achieving students that are just knocking out of the park in terms of academics, they really have a likelihood of getting into, we've always thought, the Harvards and the Yales, and and may not need our award because those schools can give full packages. I will tell you, we've learned that assumption isn't completely correct, and that not all of these selective schools have been that good about really accepting dreamers. But what we're really looking for is the middle of the pack kid. So academics are important, but a student who has a 2.5 should definitely apply. We have students who have 2.5 GPA and they have received our scholarship. I can tell you the average GPA of for our cohorts is about a 3.55. But I emphasize again, we have many 2.5s who have received the award. Then we do scores for the curricular, the community service, and the home responsibilities. What I want to counsel students on is, I think it's a little bit of a mindset. People think, well, I shouldn't count my home responsibilities. That's just something I'm expected to do, and I do it. And we want to say, look, these students give a lot to their homes and their families. And so make sure that they really are being thoughtful about completing that, because you get points for it. No question about it. Then with the essays and overall, what we're really looking for are highly motivated, resilient, determined people who will succeed in college and life. So that's how we think about our mantra. And in the essays, we really want to see students who are thoughtful about their journeys, the barriers they will face, the barriers they have faced, how they overcome those barriers. And I will say the essays, our national selection committee that reads these essays, we always tell them, have a box of Kleenex right beside you, because these essays are so heartfelt and so compelling. So it really is an opportunity, how I think about this, for the student to tell their story, both about what they hope in terms of their education and about what they've overcome to get where they are. Does that help, Sheila?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions?
Nothing else coming in yet. Oh, wait, we just have one question came in.
Okay.
If a student is considering applying to both Dominican and UIC, for example, how should they decide which school to select for the scholarship application?
Well, right now, I will tell you, this is a little bit of a nuance we have. They should select UIC. The way that I should have mentioned this earlier, I'm so glad you asked this question. In the past, UIC has only accepted community college graduates from us. That's because they come with more money, so the gap is smaller. I am really pressing them that they need to select 10 high school students, but it's a little iffy if how they'll come through for us on that. So I would say right now for Dominican, and some of it, of course, depends on what the students' academics are. I have no idea of that. So the counselor's got to figure out what might be best there. If they have no chance of getting in Dominican, they shouldn't choose it. The Dominican, just to give you a sense, in the past has taken around 25 students each year, and that was about 15 high school students and 10 community college graduate. So that gives you a sense. They tend to take more students. Like UIC, as I said, has only taken 10 community college graduates in the past. So Dominican, I think it can be a good choice. It's a little bit of a puzzle that we're going to have this year, because we do have these extra funds and we can give more awards. So we may have to do some jiggering. So if I see that Dominican has a huge number of really qualified applicants and they're not going to be able to take very many of them, and another college actually is lagging in the number of applicants, we might well then actually do something where we'd say not just National Louis, but you know what, you're highly qualified, but there's not enough room for you at Illinois College. So I could have another college. You can see it's a two-stage process. I then have to send another list. Let's use Lewis College in Dominican. Student applies to Lewis College. They're not going to get selected because there's so many with higher scores ahead of them, even though they're qualified. There might be the possibility that Dominican could take more, or another college could take more. So then what I would do is I would go to them and say, okay, here's like 5 students that aren't going to be able to get into Illinois College. Might they be eligible for Dominican? So it's a little bit of a trick managing this, I can tell you, but our goal is to fund as many students as we can and have the dollars to fund. So that's sort of my commitment.
So Candy, can you confirm, is UIC taking high school graduates now?
Well, we're waiting to hear for them to confirm it. So we don't know for sure that they're going to take high school graduates. That said, I think there is a likelihood, and what I will do as soon as I get that confirmation, we thought we would have it by last Friday, we didn't get it. As soon as I get that confirmation, I will let Sheila know and she can pass this on.
Okay.
Okay, add that to my list. And what we will do is, if we have high school graduates who have selected UIC before the round closes and UIC says, no, we're not going to do it, then what we will do is we will send an email to those students saying UIC is not going to take any high school graduates. Here's some school, others, you should select another school. So I'll also work on that front. Just know that. So they won't be lost if they select UIC and then UIC says, no, we won't take any.
Okay, and we have another question. I'm not sure I understand how the Pritzker money impacts this. Are an additional 60 students selected after the first 70 are selected?
Yes, so our agreement with Pritzker is they said, look, we don't want our funds. In the past, we've been funding students in Chicago and Pritzker has been funding students in Chicago. And so that's a good number of Dreamers that we're getting served through both programs. So Pritzker said, we want to give the money to you to administer. And it's actually at a little bit lower rate than what Pritzker was paying, a lower award. But they said, we don't want to displace the awards you would have otherwise given. So we would have otherwise given at least 70 awards. They have funds for 60, and they want to award them all this year. So that's how I come up to, we'll be doing at least 130 awards in Chicago, assuming we can get a robust applicant pool, which is where we need you.
Okay, and no more questions coming in at this time.
Okay, I'll kind of do a going. Nothing there, gone. Again, thank you for joining us. I know we sent a lot to you. If you have follow-on questions, don't hesitate to either reach out to me directly or Mel or Sadhana, any of the 3 of us, or just go to Sheila, and Sheila, you can collect questions and send them our way, and we'll make sure we get the information. Okay, and I have 2 things on my list to follow up on. One is getting you the in-state tuition eligibility criteria, and the second is, as soon as I hear from them, confirming whether UIC will be able to accept high school students.
And also the sample scholarship link.
Oh, thank you. I didn't get that one, the preview link. And I will mention, at the risk of creating hopes that then we'll will crush, I am in conversations with 2 other colleges in Chicago. I won't mention the names. They have until the end of this week to tell us if they're going to be able to join, and both would be able to accept high school graduates. So once again, as soon as I know that, we'll be sending a message on that out to all applicants, but I will also make sure Sheila knows that and can pass it on. Okay, I think that's a wrap. Thank you all for joining us. We are so appreciative of what you do. Thank you for supporting Dreamers in your high schools.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.